Alright guys, Bill here, back with a new video. In this video, I'm back with a new Dreamcasting video, but not for Survivor or Big Brother US. For this video, we're going to be talking about Big Brother Canada, and I'll be talking about my Dreamcast for Big Brother Canada All-Stars, which is obviously something that people have been asking for a while, an All-Star season for BB Can, which mind-blowing that we haven't gotten one yet out of the first 9 seasons. Considering how great of casts BB Can usually puts together, there really are a wide range of people to cast from. In this video, I'll be talking about who I would put on my cast if there were no restrictions involved. If it was just assumed that everyone wanted to come back and could come back, who would I put on my cast? So let's get started. I mean, like most of my other casting videos, we will be running through every season of the show and talking about who I considered for the list and who I did end up putting on the list and giving you my reasons why. Now, this will be a 16-person cast, and let's get started off with BB Can 1, where I end up putting 3 people from BB Can 1 onto my cast. Definitely a lot of considerations here. There were some earlier boots I considered, like Anil and Liza, who I wouldn't be opposed to seeing either of them back, though, again, like for a full-blown All-Star season, this really goes for this entire list. I did really want to go for the best of the best, for the most part, whether that be from a character standpoint or from a gameplay standpoint. For this Dreamcast for All-Stars, especially the first All-Star season of the show, I really wanted this to be the best BB Can has to offer. So because that no pre-jury boots end up making the cast, despite, again, like I wouldn't be opposed to seeing like a Neil come back in particular. I did consider the Shield, both Alec and Peter, however they both did not end up making the cut. And I did also consider Tala, who is a great character. However, I don't feel like she's going to have much to bring from a gameplay perspective, and that is why I decided to drop her. But again, I put 3 people from this cast on the cast, and spoiler, it's the final 3. So let's talk through them. I mean, the first of which is, to this day, still one of the best players BB Can has seen, and someone that I really want to see play again, really to get a better assessment of him as a player, and that is Emmett. I did actually consider cutting Emmett from the list at one point. Again, this was such a tough list to put together. This was brutal. There's so many people from BB Can that I would love to see come back. I could easily make this like a 24-person cast and still feel like there are people that are not making the cut that I still want them to. But Emmett was one of those that, like, I really want to see him back purely for gameplay reasons. I really want to see him play again, see how it works with a different group of people. Also see how he's grown over the last good chunk of years at this point. I mean, when he played on BB Can 1, he played an incredible game, but there was definitely some immaturity there. And I do feel like him being more mature now, I think he has the potential to play an all-time great game again. But I also feel like there are some red flags there that are a bit worrying. And I do feel like in general, I really want to be able to assess him as a player. And that is why I did decide to put him on the cast. Even though, again, like from a character standpoint, there are definitely other people I would rather see more. Next person we have is someone that I just like him as a character. And I think is someone that has more game sense than either of his games have truly demonstrated, and that person is Gary. Now, obviously, Gary is a really iconic figure at this point. I think coming from the first season, he was obviously a star of that season, was a massive fan favorite, and again, is someone that I think needed to come back. Now, I will say that by the end of this cast, I do worry that I put too many BB Can 5 people, as there are going to be 4 people from BB Can 5 on this cast. But not all those people get along. Gary with another person on this cast in particular that I feel like, again, it should be fine. I would love to see him play to his true potential that I don't think we've ever gotten to see at this point, due to him just not being well integrated within the power structure of BB Can 5. And I think seeing him have another chance would be nice to see, so put him on my cast as well. And the final person from BB Can 1 is someone that I did not think was going to make it, because to be honest, I don't have that much interest in seeing this person play again, outside the fact that they are the first winner. So I did end up putting Jillian. Now, it's not just the first winner element of it, it's also the fact that she's going to be on the cast with Emmett, who is her ex at this point. And considering how much they argued over the course of the Amazing Race Canada, I would very much expect that to be an interesting dynamic to watch on this season. So I think it's those two elements put together, her being the first winner and a relationship with Emmett, that did skyrocket her into making the cast. Because outside of that, to be honest, I'm not that interested in seeing her play again. I mean, yes, she is a pretty well-rounded player. I mean, she's decent enough at all three facets, definitely very good competitively. Probably lacking a little bit strategically, but again, like, I think she could pick it up. It would be interesting to see if she has learned over time. But really, to me, I feel like Jillian making the list here is more so a consequence of me trying to avoid too many BB Can 5 people, as again, I love BB Can 5. And there was definitely a point where I did consider putting like up to 6 people from BB Can 5 on the list. But because certain other people couldn't make the list, that did open a spot here for Jillian, and I decided just to put her on. Now moving on to BB Can 2, where we have a lot of considerations. Only 2 people end up making the cut here, though. Poppin' Paul Jackson would have been great, but again, too early of a boot to really consider for this list. I think Kenny would have been a notable figure at the time. I do think he's kind of been forgotten about as time's gone on. Same thing goes for Arlie. Mumsy is someone that I did like, but again, didn't put on. Heather is someone that I believe I put on my original cast. But I do think as time's gone on, it's like, are we really bringing back Heather at this point? Sabrina is someone that is great TV, and I would love to see back. However, I do feel like she's probably not all there gameplay-wise, to where I was a bit hesitant on putting her on the list, as I do feel like she's one of these people that, like, once she's out, she kind of just gives up. And she doesn't seem apt to want to play again either. So I don't know how much she would really want it on a return, so I decided not to put her on. Really considered Adele, who was someone I loved at the time. Didn't put him on. And I really considered John Party, who I was surprised did not make the list here. And actually, it is surprising that in general, that no male winners ended up making the cast. Though John was probably the closest to making it on. But the 2 women I did put on the cast here are the 2 women that have already been back for BB Can 5. I think seeing them back again would be really interesting. So first up, we have Aika, massive star, great character, BB Can 2, great character and good player, BB Can 5. Again, massive lack of jury management on that season, but outside of that, played a pretty strong game and would be really great to see play again. So put her on my cast. And to go along with Aika, I mean, I think we gotta have Netta. Again, having Aika and Netta back together would be fantastic. It would be great to see how that dynamic plays out. And also just in general, Netta is one of the best players from BB Can history, and to see her have a chance to play again, hopefully learn from her mistakes from BB Can 5. I think it would be really interesting to see, and to see her go head to head with like Emmett or some of these other players that we're going to be talking about, I think would be really fun to see. So I did feel like Netta was someone that I need to put on my cast as well. Now moving on to BB Can 3, where again, a lot of considerations. Again, someone like a Neha would be great for like an early boot season, but not really for this season. I did consider all 3 of the BB Can 5 returnees in Cindy, Kevin, and Bruno. Cindy, I'm probably fine with not seeing at this point, even though she is a train wreck and probably would play just as terribly on a return. Bruno would be interesting. I mean, like, I think Bruno is a very good player at the end of the day that does have a fatal flaw, but that fatal flaw makes him interesting to watch. But also at the end of the day, did not make the cut here. And Kevin was very close as well. Like him and John Party. I kind of forgot about Kevin when I mentioned that. But yeah, I mean, Kevin was someone that was also very much a consideration to come back. The only reason he's not back is because, again, like I feel like we've seen what we're going to see from Kevin. I feel like if he were to return, we're going to get more of the same. And while I do think that's good, and he seems like a perfect pick for a Dreamcast, considering, like, again, he's never coming back. So it makes it more worth it to put him on this Dreamcast. I just think at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know if I need to see him back personally, just because we've seen what we're going to get. So I didn't put him on. I did also consider like a Brittany and an Ashley, both people that I think could be interesting returnees, but the 2 people I did put on from BB Can 3 are, first up, Godfrey. It's like, how has Godfrey not been back? Godfrey's a lock. Godfrey's probably my most wanted returnee, maybe outside of a certain other pretty boy we'll be talking about later on. But for me, it's like mind-blowing that Godfrey was not back for BB Can 5. Should be a very easy returnee next time we have an all-star season. And it's someone that, again, I would love to see back. And was fantastic on BB Can 3. Really fun player to watch. Really fun character. He has to be there. Now, the other one was a little bit more difficult, but I also feel like this is another player that has a lot of potential. But I've been very critical of her game, and I would really just like to see her true potential, because I do think she has a great game in her, but I just don't feel like we really saw that, despite the fact that she wins her season, and that is Sarah Hanlon. Again, I think Sarah has a lot of potential to be a fantastic player. We just really saw her make the wrong decision at almost every opportunity on BB Can 3, which I've talked about in the past in previous player rankings. To go into full detail, you can watch those, but I would really like to see her live up to her potential, see her actually be able to play the game at the top of her potential, and again, to see her go against people like Aneta and an Aika and a Gary, Emma, and like some of these other people. I think it would be really fascinating to watch. So again, I did put Sarah onto my cast. Next up, we're moving on to BB Can 4, which I did also put 2 people on the cast from, but I'll be honest, like BB Can 4 is not a season that I'm like super apt to see people back from. Levita is someone that I wouldn't mind seeing back, but again, another one that's for like more of an early boot sort of thing or second chance. Nikki Graham would have been fun to see back, but rest in peace. But even then, like again, probably wouldn't have made the cut just due to her lack of true gameplay. And then Cassandra was someone I really considered. Now, Cassandra would have made the cut if there had not already been too many BB Can 5 people. Where again, we already have Gary, Aika, and Netta. Like, to add Cassandra to that list as well, again, would be fantastic TV, but it's too many BB Can 5 people, especially considering there's still one more coming, and I just decided it's probably not worth it to put Cassandra on, though again, it would be really fun. But the 2 people from BB Can 4 I did put on the cast did end up being, first up, we have, I believe, the earliest boot out of the entire list here, and that is Mitch. And Mitch was a big question mark for me because initially I did not have Mitch on. However, like the more and more I looked at it, I just really did feel like Mitch is obviously one of the bigger what ifs in the history of Big Brother, on the fact that he was playing such an amazing game up until he kind of gets screwed over by the fake double eviction twist that kind of blows up his game. And even beyond that, he's almost able to recover. I mean, like, he really showed a lot of potential on that season, and I do feel like it would be great to see him live up to that potential on this season and see how he faces off against some of these other great players. So yeah, I did put Mitch on here above some other players that I thought were going to be bigger locks. People like a John Party, a Kevin Martin, definitely some people we're going to be talking about. I did feel like Mitch's redemption arc for return was an interesting enough arc for me to put him on the cast here. And the other person from BB Can 4, I mean, this one was a lock for me. We got to have Tim Dormer. Now, I do think Tim, in the grand scheme of things, is definitely overrated as a player. And I don't love that he obviously quits Final 3. Like, that's not great. But he is a fantastic character, and he is a very bombastic player. He is a player that knows he's making good TV and does play pretty aggressively. And I do think seeing Tim back on a return would be pretty fun. Again, to see him face off against these other really great players, I think would be really fascinating to watch. So because of that, put Tim Dormer on my cast. Next up from BB Can 5, and as I mentioned, one person from BB Can 5 did make the cut. But again, this was tough. Again, I love BB Can 5. I love this newbie cast. I did consider both the French Connection. I think they're both people that I would not be opposed to seeing play again. I do think Dre's probably an underrated player in the grand scheme of things. I think William's also probably an underrated player in the grand scheme of things. I think they're both solid players. Would like to see them back. Didn't put them on, though. I'll be honest, I've always been a secret Jackie fan. Not that I feel like she needs to return, but she was definitely someone I did at least consider for a little bit. And the other person I considered that, I thought this person was going to make the cut, but sadly doesn't, and that is Karen. I really wanted to put Karen on this cast. However, I didn't because, again, like already too many BB Can 5 people. Really only one spot here for a newbie from BB Can 5. And Karen is someone that, again, like, even though she's a great character, I don't think she's bringing much gameplay-wise. Like, really, I think BB Can 5 was her best-case scenario from a gameplay perspective. And she still had pretty much zero chance of winning the game on that season. So I'm not expecting much from her on a return from a gameplay perspective, even though she is a great character. So the person from BB Can 5 I did bring back was Dimitris, who, I'll be honest, for most of my deliberation was not on the cast. But I decided to add him on because, again, I did want a newbie from BB Can 5. Now, I do question putting him on the same cast with Laika. I think that's a bit much. And there's also another player that is also well known as a comp beast that was actually on the cast over him for the majority of it. But again, it felt weird to me to not have a newbie from BB Can 5, considering every other cast, with the exception of one, has a representative from it on it. And even then, like, I think Dimitris and Laika being on a season together again could lead to an interesting dynamic as well. So I was like, screw it, whatever, we'll put Dimitris on. Now moving on to BB Can 6, and there's actually 3 people from BB Can 6 I put on the cast, and they're actually all women. And it really made me remember when going through the process of making this video, how strong of a female cast BB Can 6 was. Or again, like the men, I mean, you had Hamza, who would have been an interesting returnee, but again, probably more of a second chance candidate. Johnny is someone that kind of fits into that Mitch mold, where I do think he kind of gets screwed over a little bit. It was also a better player than what the show portrayed, and it was a debate between those two on who made the cut. Went with Mitch instead of Johnny. But again, like this women field is very strong. I mean, I think there were 5 people here that could have easily made the cut. And even someone like a Maddie, who I didn't really consider, someone that I wouldn't be opposed to seeing play again. But the 2 women that I considered but did not make it onto the cast, I did not put Erica, who I know is obviously fan favorite, someone that people want to see back. And like, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing her back. However, I'm not like super high on Erica returning either, to where I feel like there's just more people that I like from BB Can 6 over her. But again, she'll be fine. The main debate for me here for the returnees was who between Allie and Olivia to have come back. As I really like both of them. I really want one of them on the cast here, especially when, again, like considering I couldn't put Cassandra, the fact that I felt like Sabrina wouldn't really want it. At that point, like, again, we're narrowing it down to, I think either Allie or Olivia are making the cut. It's like, which one though? And I feel like in a realistic scenario, I feel like Allie is definitely the more likely returnee, but screw it. It's my list. It's my dream cast. I like Olivia more. I put Olivia on the cast. I really like Olivia. I liked her both as a player and a character more than Allie for me personally on BB Can 6. Like, while Allie was shown on the show a lot more, like Olivia was the one that was probably playing better for the majority of it, even though she wasn't as active as Allie, though. Again, Allie was just a pretty bad player, despite the show not really showing it. I always felt like Olivia had a decent amount of potential there, and I wouldn't be opposed to seeing her return. Again, like, is she 8th out of 8 out of the women on this cast? Probably. Could she be replaced by a few other people? Probably. But screw it. It's my list. I put Olivia on. And the other 2 women from BB Can 6 are a lot more of the obvious ones. We have the runner-up in Kayla, who, again, really like Kayla. Yeah, I do think people overrated her game at the time, but I do think as a player to return, I think she's someone that does have a decent amount of potential. She seems to be pretty good at all 3 facets of the game. It's definitely someone that I wouldn't be opposed to seeing again. And the other person's obviously the winner here in Paris, who I think is one of the bigger locks in my mind for a potential returnee. I know some people got annoyed by the way she played the game, but I do think she played the game very well, and I think she is one of the best players in BB Can history. And again, seeing her play again against a really strong field would be really interesting to watch from my point of view, so I really want to see Paris back as well. Next up for BB Can 7, I actually only ended up putting one person for BB Can 7 on the cast. And to be honest, there weren't that many considerations either. I mean, again, if this was like a second chance season, I would have probably considered Eddie. I think he's someone that I did really like early on. And it would be nice to see him get another shot. Sam is someone that I thought was decently likable and wouldn't be opposed to seeing her play again. But obviously the main considerations here were the pretty boys. Minus Mark, because who wants to see Mark play again? But I think the one that's easiest to cut here for me was Dane. I think Dane is someone that, again, very impressive win. Probably the best player in BB Can history. One of the most dominant games in the history of Big Brother, but I don't need to see it again. I feel like I know what we're going to get from Dane, and I'll be honest again, don't really need to see it again. Especially when we already have Emmett on this cast, who I think is someone that has more to prove, and is also of a very similar archetype. And after that, again, we have Adam, and we have Anthony, and I really thought Adam was going to make the cut here. Again, Adam was a lock for the majority of the casting process here. However, I did drop him at the last second, as I mentioned, to keep Demetres and Emmett also on the list. But I do think Demetres is probably Adam's biggest competition here for a casting pick. Now, I think in real life, I think they probably would go Adam over Demetres. I mean, Adam seems like someone that is very much in favor of production. But yeah, I kind of thought about it, and I was like, I feel like there's more potential with the Demetres return than there is with the Adam return, where I feel like Adam played out his best case scenario on BB Can 7. Like, I don't know how much more we're going to really get out of Adam. So I did decide to cut him, but I did keep Anthony on the cast. And Anthony, I mentioned this earlier, is the biggest lock on the cast. I think Anthony is my number one person I want to see play again. Has to be a lock. For me, how are they doing an All-Star season without Anthony? I think the best player to never win, for sure, with BB Can. And there's even a debate, even when adding in BBUS. I think he's one of the best players we've ever seen. Also being a fun character. So for me, it's like, why not bring him back? I feel like there's really no reason from my end of why not to. So, again, absolute lock in my eyes. Now moving on to BB Can 8, and coming into this list, I really thought someone from this season was going to make the cast. I came into this list expecting one person from this cast to be like the representative of BB Can 8, but I just ended up not doing so. Again, largely because like the field is already so strong. I feel like, again, the casting pool for BB Can All-Stars is ridiculously strong to where I feel like putting on these BB Can 8 people just doesn't feel right. Even though I would love to see certain members back here. Again, like Chris is someone that I think would be great TV. Sheldon and Brooke were two people that got really screwed over and really would like to see them back. Even like a Madeline or a Hero wouldn't be bad on a return. But I feel like at the end of the day, having them back for full-blown All-Stars feels weird. I feel like if we're going to have them back, bring them back for like a captain season maybe, or a half returnee season, but for a full-blown All-Star season, your first All-Star season, it does feel weird. And because I sadly didn't put anyone from BB Can 8 on the cast. But with that, let's move on to BB Can 9, where I did end up putting two people on my dream cast, and this was tough as well. Like, I really wanted to put a decent amount of people here, but again, the field's just so tough. So people I consider here, I did consider Roe. I think Roe is someone that I would definitely wouldn't be opposed to seeing come back. But again, with the field that we have here, I do feel like he's kind of on the lower end for me of potential returnees. Latoya is a great second chance candidate, but again, not really all-stars here. Jed was someone I really considered for a long time. There was a point where Jed was on the cast. However, the more and more I thought about it, I feel like, again, like while he does have a great redemption arc for a potential return, I don't feel like he fits All-Stars. Again, he is very much a shoo-in for like a second chance cast, but full-blown All-Stars feels a bit much. I did consider Ty. I was the winner of the season, and someone that I do think would be interesting to see back, but I do look at Anthony as essentially the better version of Ty from a casting perspective, both in terms of him as a player and him as a character, so I did cut Ty as well. So that does leave us with two people here that did make the cast, the first of which being Victoria. And I did debate over Victoria because, again, if you don't know, Victoria did kind of annoy me on the show with how much she talked up her gameplay when really she was playing a terrible game for the majority of the season, and how much the show seemed to really lean into her delusions in the game. But she's still a fantastic potential returnee. I mean, she is a great character. She knows how to play it up for the camera. She is a very aggressive player, like a very bombastic player, not a good player, but still one that would be fun to see return. So Victoria did make the cast for me. And the other person I think is probably the biggest lock for a return from this cast, if he wants it, and that is Kiefer. I think Kiefer is obviously one of the biggest characters of the season, probably the biggest player of the season. I think really up until the very, very end, I would have said that Kiefer was the best player of the season, despite him also being flawed. Again, BB Can 9 is a season filled with bad players. And really, Kiefer is like one of the least flawed of those players, who is also in a spot to potentially win the game. But again, like, Kiefer was fan favorite, great character, fun player. I think it's someone that you gotta have on All-Stars. So again, for me, he made the cut. But there we go. I mean, that is my cast, my dream cast for Big Brother Canada All-Stars. From BB Can 1, we have Emmett, Gary, and Jillian. BB Can 2, we have Ika and Netta. BB Can 3, we have Godfrey and Sarah. BB Can 4, we have Mitch and Tim. BB Can 5, we have Dimitris. BB Can 6, we have Olivia, Kayla, and Paris. BB Can 7, we have Anthony. And BB Can 9, we have Kiefer, and we have Victoria. So that is my Dreamcast for Big Brother Canada All-Stars. Again, a really fun list to put together, despite there having to be some really difficult cuts along the way. Obviously, I'm doing this video in anticipation of BB Can 10, which I'll obviously do coverage of moving forward. Obviously, expect more videos like this for all the different shows I cover down the road. But for now, that's the video. Thank you for watching.